So what we're going to try to do is a lap joint, meaning that we're going to try to remove a portion of the material here so that all we're left with is this craft paper on top, and that'll overlap our joint and hide the corrugation. So I'll show you how to do that. So once you have your piece cut out, you want to set your loading ruler onto that piece, and then we want to remove the thickness of this material. So we're going to put that material up against here. We're going to feel with our finger once it's flush. So it's flush there, and then we'll move over here. It's flush over here. So once we've got that, that's great. Again, we're going to go really slowly. Do one cut, or second cut, and then the goal of this is not to cut all the way through, but just to cut through the corrugations. Your last cut, you want to be a little more gentle with it, so you don't go all the way through. And once you've cut all that out, you should be able to just rip out this corrugation. So now we have only the paper left. Right? You can kind of see there's a little bit of a rebate in that piece. And now when we put our two pieces together, yeah, sand it out a little bit like that. Once we put our two pieces together now you'll see that there's a nice clean joint that you don't see any corrugation or any, it just looks a little bit more refined, a little bit more appealing. So we have this. The goal here is to make a roof. So we're going to use two pieces like this, and then we're going to have a strip that kind of follows all the way around, like a skirt basically that follows around the two pieces. So what we have to do next is we have to cut off this edge, and this edge, right? The same way we did to the edge over here, right? On both pieces, right? So we're going to do some YouTube magic and show you guys a piece like this. And this is basically what we want to achieve at the end, right? So once we have that, our next step is to create two of these pieces. And then once we glue these together and make that skirt that runs around it, another thing that would be smart of us to do, as opposed to just gluing our wall directly onto our piece, it would be a little flimsy. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut out this portion where the wall is supposed to fit, so that the wall can slide all the way through and get glued onto the other side of this piece. So now we have 2 points of contact, right? It's wedged in between the piece of cardboard and it's glued on the very end. Should make for a more rigid joint. So this part here is pretty self-explanatory, how to mark these pieces out. I generally, because I'm using a cardboard that has a certain thickness, and say the wall that I designed isn't exactly this thick to scale. It shouldn't be too big of a deal because you're limited to a certain amount of material. So I generally just find whatever's closest and I can line it up here and basically draw around my piece to know where it's going to be positioned or what thickness to cut. So we'll go ahead and start cutting this strip out. In instances like this, using an Olford knife like this large one might not be the best option. It'll still do the trick, but you might want to resort to a knife that is a bit more fine. Another thing you can notice, I don't know if you can see that, but it has a much steeper angle, so you should be able to kind of poke in and get a much closer cut to that corner. So we'll just go ahead and do that. And again, same cutting process as always. You want to just cut a few times, go slow, take your time. If you try to rush it and try to really break through the material in one go, chances are you're going to rip it or you might hurt yourself. So, and you'll probably find that when you're cutting inside pieces like this, that you won't be able to get to that inside corner. So what you can do is you can flip it around afterwards and just be very kind of careful to just clean up those little corners at the very edge. Once you've done that, this piece should just pop out. And there we go. Now we have an opening there that should fit our wall that we made, right? So the idea here is that the wall would kind of pass through, be wedged in between those two pieces, and then the top portion of our roof, it would get glued to the top section. Right? It would make a really strong, durable connections. So next up is to cut out the rest of these. There we go. That's our final piece. Still need the top. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, again, just how we did before, we're going to cut out a long strip of cardboard, just how we did for when we were cutting these pieces out, right? We're going to do the same thing. We're just cut out a long strip of cardboard, and then we're going to line it up to our edge. So we'll use our pen to basically mark out how far we need to cut. Use our square to figure out what a right angle to that would be. Draw that out, and we'll go ahead and cut this up. So when you're cutting little pieces like this, your ruler really doesn't have much surface area to contact with, meaning that it's going to teeter-totter on this piece. So one thing you can do is that you can just grab a piece of scrap cardboard and you can get that underneath on one side, and that'll help you even things out, right? Now we can't really teeter-totter on one side, and if you really want to, you can put another piece on this side. And there we go, now we're fully balanced. There we go. Now we have one long edge for our skirt. So now we need two long edges and two short edges, obviously, right here. We have two long pieces and we have two short pieces. So what we need to establish now is after we glue them together, again, one of these has to overlap. So we're going to do something like this. I don't know if you can see that, but this should give us a pretty clean corner right there. Right? So we'll go ahead and do that. So again, this is where prepping beforehand really comes in handy. So we're going to be gluing this piece onto here. Another benefit of doing it in this manner, as opposed to just gluing what we refer to as a butt joint, is a butt joint just has one surface area to glue to. So we can put glue on this surface and we can stick them together. And that's all we can do basically on a butt joint. But on a lap joint like this, you have much more surface area. So we can put glue along the corrugated edge here, and we can put glue along the paper edge on this side to basically have two surface areas that are making contact, so it should make for a much stronger joint. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we're going to take our tape. We'll set our tape onto our piece. And again, it's important to kind of plan ahead, because generally what's going to happen is you're going to be in a bit of a rush, and you're going to say, okay, next step is to put glue on, right? You're going to grab your glue ball, you're going to put your glue on here, you're going to stick your piece onto there, and then say like, oh no, now how do I clamp these together? How do I hold them together? So then you're going to have to hold this for 15 minutes until it dries, as opposed to planning a little bit ahead, putting some tape on there so the tape can hold it for you as you work on other tasks. There we go. Place some tape on there. So you can do one of two things, right? You can use the glue that we have here on our little tray. It should have thickened up by now a little bit. Scrape that onto our piece, right? You can use that method. You can also use the squeeze bottle. The nice thing about these food grade squeeze bottles, the ones that you kind of get for ketchup and mustard, they have a really tiny, thin opening at the tip compared to the actual Wellbond bottle. The Wellbond glue is great, but the tip here, I don't know if you can see that, but it has a really long slit. So it's hard for you to get a really fine application of glue. And we really don't want to put more glue than we need. So in this circumstance, something like this might be ideal for us, so that we can just get a nice thin bead of glue running down that piece, just like that. And we're going to place that on there. Another thing we can do is we can just place a little bit on the other base here. There we go. So we're going to put our piece on, and then one way to kind of distribute the glue that you just put on there is you can just slide your piece back and forth a little bit. Once it's on there and you're happy with the positioning, you can grab your tape, pull up, grab your tape, pull up, and tape it all together, and that should hold it in place temporarily until the glue dries. One thing you might find is that after you put the tape on, this piece is going to kind of want to open up a little bit. So what we can do to solve that, we'll grab a long strip of tape, loop it through somewhere, and use this to hold that piece in place. So there we go. So that should be more or less, you can use a right angle square to check. That should be more or less a right angle. Yeah. So we're happy with that seam right there. And once you've completed this, and if you find that there are places where there are little openings, just go back to that spot, put some tape, and tightly pull it to close up that opening. We're gonna do that there. And we're gonna do that on this side. So perfect. So now, what's left is to do the next long edge. We'll skip that step for now because it's basically what we just did exactly right now. And to place this cap that is gonna close off that corner and make it a nice clean corner in the end. So same process, we ran out of tape. We're gonna take some time to put some more tape on our workspace. Grab our glue bottle one more time, squeeze out some glue, try to get it on both faces and on the actual corner right here, just like that. Put our tape on, place our piece. We can slide it back and forth a little bit just to get the glue to distribute a little bit. Once we've done that, we can pull our tape over and close everything up. And there we go. And last but not least, we'll just put a piece of tape on the corner here, close this piece up as well. And there we go. So now we got a nice clean corner, nice clean edge on this side, clean edge on that side, and clean corner. So what we're gonna do to continue is basically top off, finish creating the skirt around the box, and then finally just cap it off with our top piece. So once we've completed all of that, our box will look something like this, at which point we can take one of our walls. The wall we would glue together fairly simply. Actually, I might as well just show you how to do that. So the wall, you can either take some glue that you have on your stick and just apply glue to the surface. It's fairly simple. Make sure you get it all the way to the corners. The corners are always the parts that tend to peel up. And then same technique as before, we'll just put our two pieces together, move them around a little bit. That's gonna help kind of distribute that glue. Once you're happy with how everything's lined up, in this case, you shouldn't just be able to leave this piece somewhere and it should dry. And then once everything's dried, you would put a bit of glue along the edge here. We'll distribute a bit of glue on there, and then we can slide it through our opening here and glue it down to our piece, right? And there we go. We're getting pretty close to finishing our model, right? So all we have left is 2 columns to do. So we'll look at how to do those columns next. Okay, so the columns, again, same kind of thing that we did before. We cut a really long strip that was a standard dimension, and then we cut that strip into smaller sections, right? Try to be as efficient with your time. Don't cut out individual little pieces like this. Cut out your long strip and then cut out the sections that you need from that strip. Just how we did with the wall, we're gonna distribute a little bit of glue on the face, like that. Put our 2 pieces together, and back and forth a little bit to distribute that glue. Once you're happy with the alignment, kind of just let it sit somewhere for a little bit. But we'll jump straight into it. So this is where those clothespins that Jason was mentioning might work great. Another little tool that we used a lot when we were in school were these little spring clamps. We bought these on Amazon, I believe. You can also buy them in Canadian Tire. They're fairly cheap and they make your life that much more easier.